Welcome back to Desk Careers. I am so excited to bring another incredible guest. Today we are meeting with Jan Horn, who is the Managing Director at SAE Creative Media Institute here in the United Arab Emirates. Welcome, Jan. It's so exciting to have you with me today.
Thank you, Maria. Thank you for the opportunity. It's great to be talking to you. Thank you so much.
I am delighted to be talking to you for a number of reasons. One, because you have such an incredible career story to tell and share. And another, because you are here talking about those creative careers. And I think sometimes our youth skirt around these types of careers, but there are so many exciting opportunities in departments across the world that are very creative in nature. And that's something that I want to be celebrating more of. So I'm super excited to talk about your journey and how it fits into those creative types. Before we jump into SAE and the types of opportunities that the youth can find at SAE, I want to take you on a trip back in time. I'd like to go back to those younger days when you were a secondary student yourself. Do you remember what your interests were back in those teen years?
You're taking me back quite a number of years now, Maria. I don't want to give my age away, but yes, the time that we would be talking about now would be kind of like the early 80s, late 70s, early 80s. Now, this was a very, very exciting time in our history, apart from the fact that the 80s are probably the era in the world history that had the best music that still live today. So hooray for 80s music. And that obviously played a big part of my teenage life at that period of time. But yes, so as an 80s generation person, what was so exciting in the 80s was the technology that was starting to emerge. You know, personal computers were starting to advance and becoming accessible to the general public. And this was probably the most exciting thing that I experienced in my youth as a teenager. You know, when Commodore 64 came out with their first personal computer, when the ZX Spectrum was launched, when Apple launched the Macintosh in 1984. It was just the time to be alive for us, as young people. And I was very fortunate to be part of that, because schools also at that time started setting up training centers for students that could potentially go into computer science. And I was selected as one of those students. And so I had a very first-hand experience of the development of technology and computers at that stage. So yeah, that was it.
Amazing. Back in that time, I'm not going to disclose my age, but back in that time, what I read was that computers were not really things that people thought about. They didn't really see them. I mean, there were two camps, weren't there? There was the camp that were like, computers are the future. And there was the other camp saying, what are you talking about? There's no way that this is our future. And here we are, 2021. We can't even imagine. I think if we asked a young person to imagine a time without a device, they would look at us in the alien shape form. But what was that in that time when you were totally captured by this world of computer science? What were your elders telling you? What was the mentorship around you, advising you when you were so enthralled in these computers?
Yeah, it was amazing. I actually had an uncle who was a very prominent businessman, very successful businessman, and he was one of those people that was just looking towards the future as well. And he, at the time, actually paved the way for me to be able to access training in computers by sponsoring me to be able to do that. And he was the one that actually bought me my first computer at that stage. It was a very basic little plastic little thing that doesn't even have the capabilities that a basic calculator would have today. But there were some visionary older people, mentors that really saw the future and encouraged young people to move in that direction. What is quite interesting is that although at that stage I was set for a future in computer science and I was being encouraged to go in that direction, what actually happened is that I used to attend computer science lessons with this group of select students from a cluster of schools that were brought together to attend these computer science lessons, in the afternoons. And what would happen from time to time is the teacher would be late. The computer teacher that would be teaching us would either be late or sometimes maybe would not arrive at all. And then I would teach the class. I would literally just get up and and it started off as me just showing off and being a class clown. And I would just get up and just start teaching. And eventually the kids started saying, "You're better than the teacher." And they started, "Would we prefer you actually teaching us the stuff?" That reached the principal of the school that I was attending at that stage. And he called me in one day and he said to me, "I heard that you sometimes take this class and that you're very interested in computers." And I said, yeah, this is what's happening. And he said, "Have you ever considered going into education, into teaching?" And I said, "Nah, never really thought of it." And he showed me the opportunities that existed with getting a teaching qualification and also the bursaries that existed. I grew up quite poor. I grew up without parents. I was an orphan. So the potential of being given a scholarship to be able to study was something big for me. So I immediately grabbed onto it. And what happened was the interest in computers was the catalyst that actually put me on the path towards becoming a teacher.
That's amazing. That's an amazing story. But I think what's more amazing about that is this concept of open doors, because you never know what can come from that opportunity. And this is a life lesson that I would love for young people to really take advantage of, because the idea that if I study this now, this is what it will give me is a misconception that life is linear, which we all know. Anyone that is alive will know that you can plan and plan and plan, but there will always be something that will take you off that linear path. Jan, would you say that mentorship, being a younger person, was vital for you, or would you have found your way, do you think, eventually, whether or not you had an incredible uncle who would have supported you or the other mentors that came on your path?
Yeah, it's a very interesting question, Maria. I would like to believe that the path would have happened anyway. I think we're all on a journey. I think we live our lives and we make decisions that either take us in one direction or another. Mentorship, however, I think is absolutely crucial to keep people motivated to move forward, to make the right decisions, to support, and to be able to ask questions and get feedback on the experience of other people. So yes, it's a very, very interesting question that I haven't really considered in the past, but I do believe that the influence of the mentors, and I'm specifically talking about, I'm the youngest of 5 brothers, by the way. So, I had older brothers. I had a generation of older people, an uncle, although I didn't have parents. I had an aunt that was very influential in my life. I had an uncle that was very influential. The principal of the high school that I attended was very influential. they certainly, without a doubt, made it possible for me to be able to follow and carve out a direction for my life. I would like to believe that it would have been, that the journey would have been possible anyway, because, you know, I think we're all on a journey. It's all just about the choices that you make.
I agree. It really is. You can only do what feels right in the next moment, and
Right.
just go with that flow. And I asked you that question because although these conversations, the primary aim is to help a young person understand that there's so much wealth to be learned by listening to career stories of mentors. But at the same time, I would like to use opportunities for our elders to remember the impact that they have on a young person's life, and that mentorship, those little conversations, just the moment that I think we take for granted sometimes in our busy lives. And when a young person is watching or speaking to us, I think sometimes we don't realize the kind of an impact that we have as people, as role models. And taking this opportunity to ask you that question was, for me, a hope that an adult, an educator watching this will remember that these little moments that we don't really notice, they carry such an impact in the lives of our youth. So I appreciate you taking us there. Let's go back to your time as you were evolving. So you found your way into education, and then you went off and you joined that world. What was it like for you being an educator? And what were some of the skills that you learned in the classroom that you used in the profession, but what were also some of the skills that you had to learn and adapt to? And I ask you that question because I want our youth to understand that the wisdom doesn't happen in a textbook. Textbook gives us a little bit of a roadmap, but it's actually adapting to situations. So I'll throw that question, or it's quite a loaded question, but we'll go with it anyway.
Yeah, look, I mean, the first thing that I can say about when I joined it, my career as a teacher, man, I had the best time. It was the best time of my life. I was in my early 20s being a teacher in a small little coastal town in Cape Town, South Africa. It was the best time of my life. I had fantastic students. I loved the kids. The kids, I think, really enjoyed the way that I like to teach, and I had a fantastic time. It was just amazing. I learned so much from the kids during that time, and from the young people that really shaped the direction that my career took. I think the one thing that was very important to me is that everything that I did was about the children. It was about making sure that they were comfortable with the learning that were happening in my classes, and that I could really get them to a point of understanding and enjoying education as well. Because I've had so many students, past students of me, that would write me a letter and say, I became a scientist because the way that you taught science, or I decided I was going to become a musician because of the way that you were passionate about encouraging us to follow our talents and our potential. And that's fantastic. And that was just amazing for me. The most rewarding thing about education is getting that kind of responses. The one thing for me as well is that I always wanted to keep learning. I wanted to get to do more. I always were happy to take on new projects, just keep on doing new things and having new experiences. And that led me to becoming a principal at a relatively young age, because, there was just so many things that I was involved with. So I was just over 30 when I became principal of a school. It was at a very young age. In retrospect, think I was probably a little bit too young I very quickly gained the experience of being a principal that did things different, that had a different way of looking at education, at managing a school. And it was really because I also, in my mind, always looked at, changing things from the status quo to doing it a little bit differently. That's always been my way and my approach to whatever I do, and trying to find solutions and to problems in a different way. And that led me to, after being principal for a number of years, it led me to become involved in tertiary education, where I had the opportunity to work with students that really have chosen to study towards a specific chosen career path, and eventually ended up working for the last 15 years or so with students that are gravitating towards the creative side of careers. So my whole journey have really brought me there, and that's where I found the place where I feel most comfortable, where I feel I can really have the greatest impact, and what I feel passionate about.
So wonderful to hear how seamless that story sounded. And that's another thing that we notice with role models, is when they're retelling the story, it really sounds such a flow and such an ease, but we know there's emotional connection to every decision we make. I really resonate with what you were saying about the impact of your leadership on students in the capacity of either being a teacher or a school leader. It's that long-lasting impact. The stories that your students were telling you in their letters was really that you gave them the opportunity to feel seen, to feel heard. For a young person wanting to go into the path of education, which I believe is probably one of the most rewarding paths that one can take, and I know I'm being biased right now, but I do believe that being an educator is such a rewarding place. It's such a human place to be. What are some of the skills that a young person should be developing today if the future for them is a calling towards education?
Yeah, it's a very, very pertinent question, because, education, I think it's such a challenged profession right now, where a lot of people look at what's happening in education, and to make that decision to go into a career that has changed so much over the last couple of years. Also the difference of generations that you deal with within the classroom. So the advice that I would have for young people that are considering going into education is, of course, you need to be passionate about young people. You need to be passionate about children. You need to understand what it is that the role that you want to play within influencing their lives. But the comment that you made about education being such a human-centered place is very pertinent, because as an educator, you don't just work with children. You work with parents. You work with families. So you need to be a people's person. The parents of children are engineers, are CEOs, are other educators, are doctors, are lawyers. So you need to be adaptable to be able to communicate and identify and resonate with people from all walks of life. Educators are probably the people that needs to be the most adaptable when it comes to communicating with people from different walks of life. Because within your classroom, you have parents of those children that are from all the walks of life of the community. Mm-hmm. And here in Dubai, where we are, it's even more so, because we have people from all the walks of life from all over the world. You can have 25 different nationalities all sitting in one class. So it's being adaptable. It's being resilient. It's being willing to understand the human condition. I think it's probably the most helpful skill to develop. And then to support that is to be somebody that is always hungry for knowledge. You know, if you're going to be pursuing a career in, let's say, in the medical field, as a doctor, you would always want to know what is the most recent developments that are happening in the medical field, so that you can apply those most recent groundbreaking techniques for the best of your clients. Teachers are the same. You should always research and look at what are the best techniques that are being developed that can be applied within the classroom and to your students. And that's very exciting, because education is probably the field that is rapidly expanding at such a rate right now, with the new technologies that are coming in, the new approaches that are happening with regards to how pedagogy is applied and curriculums are developed, and whether it is face-to-face or online or technology-supported education. There's so much of exciting things that happen, and as an educator, you should always be like a sponge to just look at new things to apply.
Lifelong learner. I think if you are a young person wanting to go into the field of education, as you were saying, Jan, is you have to love learning and be a people person. And adding to that as well, I think remembering as parents, and I'm a parent as well, we send our most precious parts of us to these institutions. I think if you want to be an educator, you have to keep your ego at home and come to school with your heart in your hands and ready to listen and be curious. And oh, Jan, so many things. Bringing it back to your current role, tell us more about what it's like to be a managing director at SAE Institute and why a young person would want to join this institute.
Yeah, look, I mean, when I start talking about not only SAE Institute, but the creative media industry and career paths for young people, I get very passionate about that. So if I get a little bit carried away, you must excuse me. But yes, so just a little bit about SAE Institute. So SAE stands for School of Audio Engineering, which was originally launched in Australia in 1973 as a school that specialized in training audio engineers. Over the years, it has developed into becoming the largest global education, higher education provider for degree programs in a wide range of creative media disciplines. At SAE Dubai, for example, we've been here since 2005 in Dubai. We specialize in the fields of animation, graphic design and visual communication, film production, audio engineering, and game design. We are going to be launching a new program in virtual reality and augmented reality soon, so people can have a look out on that. So that's SAE, that's what we do. We're a specialized university that offers degree programs in creative media disciplines. That's it, that's the elevator pitch. Why would people want to do that? Because not everybody is a lawyer. Not everybody is an engineer. Not everybody is a teacher, an educator. Not everybody is a doctor. Within all communities, you have creatives. You have people that have got creative talents and that are passionate about these creative talents. And what a lot of people don't understand is you can take this passion and you can turn it into a profession. You can take this passion and you can turn it into a career where you get paid really good money to do the thing that you're really, really passionate about. And you can apply your creativity in the discipline that you feel most comfortable with and come up with solutions that it's just amazing. So that's why students come to us, because they want to be able to use their creative passion. They want to be able to use their creative talents, but they want to be able to do it in a career, as a career, and build a future out of that. And which is what our students do. So yeah, it's amazing for me to be part of that. I'm very passionate about that, because like I say, for me to be able to create a pathway for students to be able to live their purpose and their passion is what I feel is where I fit in the best.
Amazing. And you know, all those occupations you mentioned, the most incredible thing is they all turn to the creative career professionals to support them, because we can be great at what we do as doctors and lawyers, but if nobody knows we're doing it, how productive will we be and successful in the terms of client base and so on and so forth. So I think it's time to celebrate more of our creative professionals, and I am so excited for SAE to be helping us to create more of an awareness this month. And let's keep going. I know that your top 3 tips are to follow your passion. So in what you were just saying, I'm so passionate about it. I love that it's not just a tagline that you say follow your passion, but you're actually living by this concept of follow your passion. Always learn, lots of tips you gave us through the interview, and be a problem solver. Just before we bring our conversation to an end, for a young person listening to you and thinking, how can I be a problem solver when no one really lets me solve my problems because they tell me what I'm supposed to be doing? How does a young person become a problem solver in a world where they're really not encouraged in education to have that voice?
Right. So I think there's some work that needs to be done within our education role players and our partners within the schools, and also in some of the tertiary education institutes that prepare students for the future place of work. It's very important that even in the education system that we have today, that we start implementing programs within our schools that teach students the skills of self-leadership and self-management, so that they can really understand what it is that they're doing, why they're doing it, and how they're doing it. This is very important for me. How do people develop those skills of coming up with solutions, solving problems? Well, there are problems all around us. Creative people have the ability of looking at the world and seeing what is currently there. And I can tell you now, they are solving those problems in their heads anyway. Every single creative thinker, and I'm not just talking about somebody that has a creative talent like drawing and animation or filmmaking or music or something like this. I'm talking about somebody that has a creative thought pattern. And that exists even in lawyers and doctors. Everybody that solves a problem is a creative. So there's a process that you can apply to becoming a creative problem solver, which is design thinking. And I think the more that we expose young people to this process of using design thinking to come up with solutions, the better they will become at it. But young people, my advice to you is look at the world and question and ask yourself, is there a better way? And the way that you always, for me, it all comes down to a piece of paper and a pencil. To draw a picture, to write a piece of thought that just defines a problem and then says, okay, well, this is how I would solve that problem. Now, in the workplace, and this is just a tip I would want to give young people as well, is if you want to build a career, the most advice I can give you is to become a problem solver for the people above you. We all have people that we report to. So the more you come with solutions to things that they find as problematic, the more impactful you will become. The other part of it is, I really believe that all people, young people should find one aspect of a discipline or an interest and become a specialist at it. Become the best at one thing. Find one thing that you are really, really good at. And just practice it. And then one day when that problem comes up that needs that one thing as the solution, you are the person that steps forward and say, I know how to do this. I have the solution. And all of a sudden, you're the center of the room. And that opportunity will come. The opportunity for you to use that skill will come. So find that one thing that is really your passion. Practice it, so you become the best at it. And the opportunity will come one day when you are the only one that can solve a problem by using that skill. And that is amazing.
I feel like I'm sitting in a classroom. You've taught me so much, and this is what I love about these conversations. The youth have so many incredible role models just like you. Jan, thank you so much for sharing all of these tips, and I will remember those words. Is there a better way to do this? I think that is an incredible message, and we're going to end our conversation just with that.
Thank you, Maria. It's been fantastic to talk to you.
And that brings us to the end of a very philosophical and inspiring conversation. We met with Jan Horn, who is currently the managing director at SAE Creative Media Institute here in the United Arab Emirates. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you at our next Desk Careers Digital Spotlight.